Are all our media partners all set? We appreciate you all coming. And with that, it's my honor to introduce Governor Ned Lamont.
Hey, well, thank you, Susan. The most important thing you do as a leader is get the very, very best people around you to do the heavy lifting. And that's what I've tried to do as governor of the state, and made a particular effort to make sure we had the very best commissioners we could find far and wide. And people have recognized that. They've been cherry-picking some of our superstars now for a while. Glendlin's now over at Amazon, and saw President Biden this week. I said, please don't take any more of my commissioners. You're doing fine with mental health and education. And it's been 3 years since the folks have put in some amazing effort. And Josh Geballe has been an extraordinary leader for this state. He's been an extraordinary leader at DAS, an extraordinary leader at COO, Chief Operating Officer, a new job, and a really important friend for me during an incredibly complex time. And one of the things that makes him so special is he put together an extraordinary team of his own. And that's the mark of a real leader. We're integrating our technology, getting those old servers out of the closets, moving things up to the cloud, making sure our different departments can talk to each other. And Mark was here before, came out of the private sector, and played a real key role for us. Noel Petra, I think I saw Noel here. Going over, want a hand with that? You know, in terms of construction, making sure people know that we're building things the most efficient, effective way possible, putting together a team he's got to do. Nick is, in terms of personnel, what we got to do to continue to attract the best and brightest. Concentrating that across at DAS, and making sure the best and brightest come from all across the sectors, and we find them in all of our different commissions and departments. Thank you. Gene and purchasing. These are things that, in my world, in the political world, they sort of happen and not that important. If you come out of the business world, these are key functions to get right, to give people confidence their state is doing it right. And under Josh's leadership, DAS has gotten it right. And it's gotten it right because he got the right people around him. He's gotten it right because he got Michelle Gilman around him. Every leader needs a really important right hand, and Josh had that person. Everybody used to kid me at the press briefings because, tough question, they go, that's a good question, what do you think, Josh? And he always had an answer. And often he would say, what do you think, Michelle? And this is a seamless transition. Michelle is going to be an extraordinary commissioner for Department of Administrative Services, right hand for me, right hand for Paul Mounds, working together to continue all the amazing things we've got to do as we work through the last of COVID. She's been on the front lines of COVID, you know, working with Josh. She's been right there making sure that when our hospitals were being overwhelmed, they had the extra surge capacity. She was right there when the vaccines were coming out, and no offense, but the CDC didn't know who should get them and how we should prioritize it. And Josh and Michelle were right there. We did that right. We did that in a way that saved, I think, an awful lot of lives. And Josh and Michelle were right there. And Michelle knows the team there at DAS, knows that we're going to be there ready for the so-called silver tsunami, making sure that between personnel and technology, we're ready to make that transition, which is, right around the corner. Just want to say one other thing, that it's been a little like a war with all the incoming over this last couple years. And if you're going to be in a foxhole, you want to be in a foxhole with Josh Geballe. He was the first guy I talked to at 6:30 in the morning, and the last guy I talked to at 10:30 at night. And the president says drink bleach, and Josh, we're going to have to deal with that. I mean, I don't. Do we get the lights off the shelves? What do we do? It's the president saying this. People take this seriously. When the testing and the vaccinations and the anxiety and the reopening, you had to get that balance going forward, and Josh was somebody that always had that balance going forward. Josh was already somebody that could talk to all the different players that helped make the right decision a better decision. People know that Connecticut did it right, know that Connecticut led with the science, got the stakeholders involved, were hit harder than just about any state in the country. But then each successive wave, we did better. We did better because of the thanks to the people of the state of Connecticut and thanks to the leadership of Josh Geballe. And here we are 2 years later. And he's not going far. I'm really happy about that. He's doing something he loves, which is entrepreneurship and innovation. He'll tell you about it, invited by Yale University. And that's really important for the state of Connecticut as well, Josh, and I appreciate that. Look, North Carolina has the research triangle. You've seen what's coming out of that. And Stanford and Berkeley, they got Silicon Valley, and Austin and Cambridge are catching up. And we had some work to do as a state to make sure we keep our entrepreneurial juices going. And that often starts with an amazing education system, an extraordinary university system. We have one of the best in the world at Yale University, and Josh is going to be making sure that those extraordinary ideas have an innovative aspect to them, have a commercial aspect to them. And what you see at Research Triangle, what you see at Silicon Valley, you're going to see the next generation platform right here in the state of Connecticut, and Josh Geballe has an opportunity to play a key role there. This is a guy that cares deeply about this state. He could have done anything. We were lucky to have him for the few years that he was here on behalf of the state of Connecticut. Yale is lucky to have him there. I'm kind of lucky to have him there because that's going to keep our forward momentum going. So I want to say, in particular, on behalf of our entire governor's office and from Paul and myself, Josh, we are eternally grateful, and don't be a stranger. I'm still going to be calling you up at 6:30. It's just in my DNA right now. And Michelle, I've never seen somebody so prepared to step up as you are, and you can get some calls as well. I'm here to take any questions, but first and foremost, let me reintroduce the Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Governor. And I'm just so proud to be here along with the governor to say thank you to Josh Geballe for his incredible and truly brilliant leadership during the dark days of COVID. Shortly after COVID struck and we realized there was no national stockpile of PPE, Josh and Michelle stepped up in a really big way, competing with 49 other states and every other country in the world to build our stockpile of PPE in our state and to fight the COVID pandemic. And the two of them are a huge reason why we are one of the best tested and best vaccinated states in the country, because they were working with our partners in the healthcare industry, in the private sector, the insurance companies, our healthcare workers and government to make sure we could fight the pandemic in the most effective way. And by the way, while they were doing that, they were modernizing, making our state's government more transparent, more accountable, and much more efficient, and putting on our state on a path to a much more modern future in terms of our technology. So we are so very grateful for Josh's efforts. You know, the governor and I are Yaleys, and so we understand this draw back to Yale and to New Haven. And let me just say, I know Josh he's a double Yaley. He went there undergrad and also to SOM like the Gov. And Yale is extraordinarily lucky to have him back. But our state is lucky because I know that he's going to help the entrepreneurs who are at Yale, the incredibly smart people who are researching all kinds of cures for diseases and coming up with great products and services that are going to create jobs and make life better, not just in our state, but all over the country. So, Josh, thank you so much. We are really going to miss you. And I am so proud to be here with my friend, Michelle Gilman, who is at Josh's side at every step of the way, helping to make all of these things happen, to set up testing sites from scratch, to set up mass vaccination sites, to help nursing homes in need, to talk to the myriad of people who called the governor and I and said, hey, I can get you N95 masks, surgical gowns, whatever it was. Michelle was there making it happen. And I know that she will be an incredible leader for DAS because she knows Connecticut government so well. She spent her life in public service helping our state controller before she came to our administration. And I know that she knows the people, she knows the processes, and she has great integrity and is going to serve our state with continued distinction. So I know that we're going to be in great hands, and it is now my incredible pleasure to introduce Josh Geballe.
Well, thank you, Governor and Lieutenant Governor, for the incredibly kind and overly generous comments. I think more than anything, thank you for the invitation, along with Paul, to join this administration over 3 years ago. It's an incredible honor to serve with you and under you and with the rest of our team. And more generally, I think, thank you for welcoming in people into our leadership roles in our administration who don't come from state government, have kind of non-traditional backgrounds to really bring a robust set of experiences and skills. And I think that's served our state well, and I appreciate your vision in that regard. And I also want to just, Governor, thank you for being such a great boss. I think everybody hopes to have a boss who, helps set the vision and the direction and is willing to take the tough decisions when they need to be made, but really empowers his people to go out and take risks and try to change things for the better, and then has their back if things don't go perfectly. You've been that kind of boss day in and day out, and not just with me, but I know all of our commissioners, all of our leaders. And I think so much of the progress we've made as a state is because of your management style and your leadership style that has really helped lead this state through some very, very challenging times over the last couple of years. I also want to say a very personal thank you to Paul Mounds, Governor's Chief of Staff. That foxhole that the governor was talking about before, there's no one I would rather have been down in there with than Paul Mounds. He's been instrumental in helping to teach me how to get things done in Hartford. I'm thrilled that I'll be able to continue to call him a friend for years to come. Also, a huge thank you to the DAS leadership team, kind of arrayed around the back here, including Andrea Barton-Reeves, who is an honorary member of the DAS leadership team since we incubated the paid leave authority upstairs. I am every day so grateful that each of you are willing to take on the challenges that you're in right now, and the degree to which every day you're relentlessly working to push the state forward and to reinvent your respective functions that the governor alluded to in ways that I think will serve this state, not just in the short term, but for many, many years to come. And also, in many cases, set a national example for what state government can do. And so I've been just incredibly honored to be able to work alongside you each and every day, and so grateful for having had that opportunity. And then just finally, I want to say a broader thank you to all the rest of our commissioners who aren't here, and our other leaders, and all of our people out on the front lines in state government, particularly those people who came forward 2 years ago when COVID was descending on the country and on the state, and kind of rolled up their sleeves and set aside their job descriptions and just said, we're going to do whatever it takes to get the job done and to try to do our level best to lead the state through this unprecedented time. And time and time again, we've seen people rise to the challenge and do just remarkable work over the last couple of years at a time when the people of the state were looking to state government to help them, right, and provide leadership and guidance and provide services they needed to keep themselves and their families safe. And no one was more central to that effort than Michelle Gilman. I remember when, I think I was about 2 weeks in the job, and we were going to hire a deputy COO, and someone had recommended that I interview Michelle, and I called Michelle up, and I asked her if she'd be interested in coming and talking about the job, and she said, sure, where should we meet? And I said, well, you're going to have to come over to the Emergency Operations Center, because that's where we're hanging out these days. It was right around the time the governor had declared a state of emergency. And I'll tell you, most people wouldn't show up for that job interview. Most people would run the other direction. But Michelle went running straight in. And I think the next day she was on the job. And every day since, she has taken on the toughest assignments and the greatest challenges and executed with such incredible skill and grace and excellence. She's a person who is rarely in front of the cameras. But I will tell you that every single person in this state who has played some sort of leadership role in the pandemic, either inside state government or outside state government, knows exactly who Michelle Gilman is, because she has been front and center on all of those important initiatives and has done such an absolutely amazing job. There will never be a shorter learning curve than Michelle taking over this job, because she has been embedded with this team for months and months, and I couldn't be any more proud or happy to hand the DAS commissioner seat over to her. So congratulations, Michelle.
So it's our pleasure to introduce our new DAS Commissioner, Michelle Gilman.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much to all of you for being here. And I also, of course, want to thank the governor and the lieutenant governor for this appointment and for their confidence in me to do the job. And I have to say, of course, thank you to Paul and to Josh, really as my colleagues and my comrades through this journey. It's really been an incredible opportunity to work with this team, to work with the governor and the lieutenant governor through this time of great challenge and really this time of great opportunity. So for me, this new role, I do feel comfortable moving forward in the role from day one, given the opportunities that Josh has provided to me, and also certainly the team. Again, many of them here today, and I'm internally grateful to them, not only for the work that they do day in and day out, but also for the work that they and their staff do throughout this COVID crisis. I've had the pleasure and honor to see people work through holidays, most recently the Christmas and New Year's holiday. The procurement teams led through by Jean Burke, who again is here, Yolita Lazowskis, who's also here and runs our business and financial division, staff at the Comptroller's office, staff at OPM, staff at DPH. The talent that we have in this state and the commitment that we have in the state is tremendous, and it's a privilege to be a part of that and to continue and to grow in this new role. I do want to acknowledge the continued work under the governor's leadership that will continue to move forward on centralization of many of our services so that we can promote and make accessible the services that our state offers, not only here at DAS, but across many of our state agencies and through a multiple amount of services that our state provides, making services more accessible for our residents, providing equitable services for individuals with technology and online operations, but also providing in-person services as well as we need to. Continuing to provide modernization of our state systems, again, to provide one-stop shopping and ease of government, breaking down barriers and silos within government all across our executive agencies, working with our other branches of government to ensure equal access and similar operations so that it's a streamlined process and people don't have to depend on different branches of government running differently through different approaches. We also want to expand upon our procurement. Procurement is not the most hot word of the day, but we have a lot of small and minority businesses enrolled in our procurement programs throughout the state of Connecticut. But we can do better. We need to do more, and we can do better every day. And our staff that work with our small and minority businesses are hungry to enroll more businesses, more women-owned businesses as state vendors and in other business opportunities throughout our state. So the work doesn't stop here. We continue every day to see how we can do better, how we can do more, and to build upon collaboration. So I look forward to working with the legislature to look at other opportunities over the coming year, to work on new initiatives, and to continue the good work that the governor has laid out through his vision, not only, again, through the COVID response, but through our day-to-day operations. I'll be remiss if I didn't, again, thank the leadership team that is here and who I'll be looking to for continued support as I step into this role. Again, I wish Josh all the very best. His steady leadership, his steady hand has been incredible, and he's really become a mentor to me and for Paul as well. Really have all the greatest respect for both of you. So thank you again, and thank you also to my family, who, if I didn't thank, I will hear about it tonight over the dinner table. So with that, thank you very much.
We thank all of our media partners for coming, and all these folks will take your questions.
So I'm just curious. So Michelle is taking over DAS Commissioner. Are you also the Chief Operating Officer then? What is I know that Josh was the first Chief Operating Officer, so just...
Nope. I was.
Oh, you were?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Hey, don't kill me yet. Yes, first and foremost, obviously, with the DAS Commissioner position and all the statutory duties, it was the responsibility and first thing that the governor wanted to do was to fill that role. We will be evaluating the next steps as it deals with that position in the coming days and weeks, and we'll be happy to keep you all up to date. But first and foremost was filling in the DAS position role and making sure everyone knows that strong leadership there upon Josh's departure.
Josh, can you explain a little bit more about the Yale job? And the governor seems to indicate it's going to be akin to what we see in the Research Triangle and perhaps Kendall Square up in Cambridge about bringing innovation from the academic setting out into the market. So what will that job entail?
Sure. So you summarized it well, and the governor obviously did too. It's a new role that Yale's created to help lead its efforts in the area of entrepreneurship and innovation. So there's an enormous amount of remarkably innovative and cutting-edge research going on inside Yale. And this role is intended to help enhance and provide additional supports to the faculty and the students and even people in the broader community to help them take that innovation and launch it out into the world where it can have the greatest impact. And so, this will often take the form of new startup businesses being created in and around New Haven that will create jobs and import talent and capital and help grow the local economy and create opportunities. So it's a really exciting role. It's a community that I was part of prior to my time in state service, and I really look forward to diving back in with them and helping.
So why now?
They created this job, I think, last fall, and had a search process going on, reached out, and it was something of a dream job for me, I think, for the longer term. And so I started having the discussions with them, and it led to this.
Could you give us an update on the modernization? I know these are broad topics, but on the modernization efforts, as well as the state's preparation for the wave of retirements coming July 1.
Sure. So, one of the things the governor alluded to as well that I think we're all really proud of is that despite the disruptions that COVID caused, our team in the back here continued forging ahead throughout the pandemic on the governor's key initiatives around modernizing our operations, moving more transactions online, centralizing a lot of the business functions of state government to make them more responsive to our agencies, more responsive to the taxpayers. And that work has continued at pace. And so, the governor went around the horn a little bit, but, particularly in the area of technology, we have the state's first IT architecture, which has laid the tracks for years of work that we will do to continue to sunset legacy systems, implement new modern technology, integrate the systems across agencies so we can share data, we can provide a more modern experience for our residents to access the services. That's just one example. I mean, the work, you mentioned personnel, and the work that Nick and his team have done to implement HR centralization has put the state in a position where we are better prepared than ever to address the wave of retirements that's coming. Through the first 6 months of the year, Nick's team and our agency partners have filled more open positions than they have, at least in the last 10 years that we have recorded history, and are on pace to really meet the challenge ahead of us. Now, that's despite an incredibly tight labor market where every employer is working extra time to try to attract talent. And of course, we've thrown a lot of additional work at them in terms of vaccine mandates and contact tracing and a lot of other stuff. But I shudder to think where we would be if we had not implemented that initiative a couple of years ago, and we are very well positioned to meet the challenges ahead. So I think that the net of it all is that the strategy the governor laid out, we've got the plans in place, they're in motion, and I know we're incredibly confident that under Michelle's leadership, we're going to continue making progress for years to come.
What won't you miss most about state service?
I will not miss you asking me how many Johnson & Johnson vaccine doses were implemented in the last week. Every time I see you, Paul.
Governor, on the IT piece that Josh does, take us through that. How much more has to be done on that? You've spoken about that many times, about the IT piece that he was doing and keeping an eyeball on. How does that go forward?
Well, Mark or Josh should be better equipped, but I think we're still getting started. We put off IT upgrade, and state governments across the country put it off for an awful long time. I was shocked when I got up here to the state in terms of how much more we have to do. Under Mark Redmond's leadership, it's extraordinary. What you've seen at DMV, what you've seen in terms of CT.gov, the portals, the ability to do more of these services online, and we're just getting started. As I said, I co-chair with Governor Lee, cybersecurity down in Washington, D.C. We just did a briefing on that. A lot of talk about what we got to do in Connecticut. Connecticut's a bit of a role model. As we get, as I said before, get those servers out of the closet, move things to the cloud, protect that data going forward, so it's a better customer service experience. Our departments can better communicate with each other as well as the customers, and the cyber attackers won't be able to get in.
Do you foresee breaking up what Josh was doing? By that I mean assigning somebody on the IT piece, assigning somebody on the retirements, et cetera. Or how do you?
I don't think so.
No.
Michelle's going to step in and not miss a beat. And as we tried to say before, we got an incredible team right now when it comes to personnel, when it comes to construction, when it comes to IT, when it comes to procurement, that are all part of our effort in dealing with the silver tsunami and dealing with the centralization, dealing with the last of COVID, we hope.
Josh, now that you'll be back in the private sector, would you ever be interested in running for elected office?
My grandfather told me to never say never, but I'm as close to never on that one as you could possibly. No, I don't think so. I've had an incredible experience serving the governor. I've also developed an incredible appreciation for how hard his job is, and you know, the degree to which every day is a new challenge coming from every possible direction, and how you have to constantly be making decisions with imperfect information and dynamics that are constantly shifting. And he's done an amazing job. I think we're so incredibly fortunate to have had him as our governor, and hopefully continue to have him as our governor for a long time to come.
Would Michelle or any of you really speak to what you've done during the pandemic? Michelle, if you could address that more, like how you stepped up. Josh had said that you stepped up during the pandemic right away, so I just want to hear more about what you did.
Certainly, and thank you for the question. So as Josh indicated, we did meet very rapidly in March as the pandemic was taking off. Literally ran over to the Armory, met with him, and I think I had an offer probably within 24 to 48 hours. It was an honor to be a part of the emergency response back in March 2020 when we knew very little. And we knew we needed to respond. But what I saw at the Emergency Operations Center was a team ready to move, ready to mobilize, and with a plan. So we implemented that plan, had the team assembled from all agencies, and we were ready to move and address with, again, a lot of unknowns. And so through that, especially as the Lieutenant Governor indicated, no stockpile of PPE, no testing access at that time, and very little that we knew about the disease overall. And so, moving ahead and moving rapidly as we knew we needed to do to protect our state, we moved forward quickly to ensure that testing was accessible in our communities, and particularly our communities that were most at risk, our vulnerable communities, our cities, and our vulnerable residents. So standing up testing, making PPE accessible, masks, testing kits, not only, for our residents, but also for nursing homes, for hospitals that were also struggling with supply chains and overwhelming hospital facilities. So we also stood up the convention center and other surge hospital areas that fortunately we never needed to use. We also worked with our nursing home partners to stand up our COVID recovery centers. So I was involved with that effort. All of this, again, I want to indicate is part of the collaborative approach that we took with DPH, with DEMIS, all of our state agency partners that are 24/7 operations, DDS, VA, anyone that really serves, the vulnerable populations and those most at risk. So those are just a few of the things that I helped to support, but what I emphasize is it was a team, and it was a collaborative team behind me and under me and by my side that really got that response done, under the governor's leadership, under Josh and Paul's direction as well. Vaccine rollout, we moved very quickly to do that on a broad level. We, as you probably recall, moved forward to implement the vaccine rollout in a different approach from the CDC. And I think by and large, that was a very successful approach. And you look at our vaccine rates now, and we're still far ahead of the curve nationally across our different age brackets. And now we have the pediatric vaccines that hopefully we'll be able to roll out for our youngest children coming soon. So more to do on that front. We all hope that we can put COVID behind us, but I think it's operating government under COVID and how we operate that moving forward, knowing that it will continue, unfortunately, to be part of our day-to-day life, but how do we make that a part of our life and not the singular focus? We have a lot to do as a country, as a state, to continue serving our residents and making our state a better place for all. So again, proud to be part of that COVID response. Thanks for the question.
And Josh, just real quick, was there one of those experiences, whether it was the vaccine rollout or standing up a hospital for capacity, was there one of those experiences where you looked to Michelle and you thought she did a great job in particular? Could you kind of tell us about their performance and whether you thought at that point she might be ready to take over for you one day?
I mean, every single one of those things she just described. I mean, it was, she was always the go-to person for whatever the toughest challenge of the day was. As soon as we got done talking to the governor, the lieutenant governor, Paul, we had some big rock we had to push up a hill. The next call was to Michelle.
Michelle, can you just describe the heavy lifting that you guys did over the last 2 years? There was the hiccup with the test kits. Can you just describe any kind of frustration you might have that sort of overshadowed all that other work?
Certainly. Thank you for the question. So speaking of supply chains, obviously the rapid test kits were something that were the hottest commodity, across the country at a time when Omicron was speeding across our state at a very rapid pace, faster than I think any of us, including our healthcare professionals, could have imagined. So the rapid test kits were meant to obviously help supplement our community testing capacity, and through our, some 400 testing partners across the state. And really, it's one tool as part of the other tools around masking and vaccination, and again the community partnership. But getting those rapid tests deployed and out into the communities was an absolute move to address the flood of COVID that was affecting our entire state again at that rapid pace. Clearly the news around the supply chain issues, looking for tests, our state competing against others, competing against the federal government, which had just announced the beginnings of a program, and then the manufacturers themselves not having the supply available was really challenging to deal with. But again, I want to signal to our procurement team, to our business operations team, DPH, OPM, the Comptroller's office, who all worked together literally over Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, through those holidays. I believe it was Christmas Day as well, to process POs and invoices, to get that supply, find the supply where it was available, and make sure that we could get that into the warehouse. The DEMIS team, the National Guard team, right at the side of all of our teams. Again, it was under that unified command and emergency operations system that we again mobilized in order to get these rapid tests deployed. And I think, as you can all see, we've been able to roll out hundreds of thousands of tests now throughout the state, again, to our vulnerable populations, those within group homes, substance abuse facilities, but also to residents that may not be able to access tests within a pharmacy right now, couldn't order something on Amazon, might be confused about how to order a test or to try to find one. So that effort has continued. I think as our metrics continue to go down, so will the demand for those tests. But as we're continuing through the respiratory season, and through March and April, we now have that supply available, in the event that we have another surge, over the next few months.
It's a great answer by Michelle, but she's being too modest. To the heart of your question, Jody, you know why there was tests that showed up that next day? Her and Jean. You know why the governor was able to tell the people of Connecticut why we had tests that showed up, and now we have over close to 4 million tests? Michelle Gilman. So let's really talk about the heart of what it means to be a state employee and really caring. It's not giving up. There's two other people who were watching the trucks come in at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was Jordan Hardenbaum, who was at the site, and Michelle Gilman and I, watching at 4 a.m. on a Thursday as 600,000 test kits were coming to the state of Connecticut, the first of 4 million. That's the type of leader that we're going to have running really what is the heart of state government, DAS.
And Paul, if I could just add one thing, because all of these questions go to, well, what did Josh and Michelle do? And I remember a moment where many of you were there in New Britain, where the National Guard had set up their site where we had a huge stockpile of PPE, ventilators, surgical gowns, gloves, over several 100,000 square feet, with the National Guard there managing the logistics. And that was in the spring, maybe end of April. And Michelle and Josh and all of our great DEMIS, DAS, public health workers had managed to do that with their leadership in a month. And that was just a big picture. So go back to that moment, and that's just one little slice of what they did.
Commissioner Gilman, could you go back up there? And, this is your big chance. What's your age, please?
Oh, boy. Isn't there a law about that? No.
Ask him there's an exemption in the law for Dixon asking questions.
I'm 51.
And how many years of state service do you have?
All told, I'm going to say about 15 or so. Probably 16, actually.
And what's your hometown?
Colchester, Connecticut.
And what's the job pay? Well, I think it's rude to ask the person who's going to get paid.
Well, I was prepared for that. It'll be 190,000. 190. It's comparable salary as all our other commissioners. But also to make sure that this is a big job.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, we got some off topics. We got a question for Josh.
Can we break for a minute on off topics and then come back?
All right, but you're going to check on the Johnson & Johnson, right?
One last answer, Josh, come on.
I will get it for you, Paul, absolutely. How are we going to handle it?
All right, I'll just take a break and do it.
Sure, sure.
Michelle Gilman, next.